A warm good morning to everybody. Yes, we were looking to the lesson. The name of the lesson is The Address, and the author of the lesson is Marga Minko. So this story is based on the this story is based on about the pre and post war. What happens to the people and the situation, entire situation between the post and pre-war. Actually, a girl gets rescued, and apart from her, everyone being passed away, or they get in the war they have been killed. So this is the only girl who gets rescued, and she is the author, and she narrates about her life history in this lesson. So actually her mother gives the address of her acquaintance, that is the narrator's mother's acquaintance. Yes, her name was Mrs. Darling, and her mother says only she is lives in number 46. So the narrator, this girl, gets down to go to her house. So first time when the narrator goes, the lady, he pretends that she doesn't know the narrator, but at last the narrator in herself finds out that is the lady that her mother has insisted. So but the lady was not ready to talk to the narrator, and so the narrator goes to the railway station. So even though she goes to the railway station, the narrator still has a desire to talk to have a conversation to her. So she comes back from the railway station. She again comes back to the house. There she saw the Mrs. Darling's daughter, and she was just 15 years old, and the narrator inquires where her mother, that is Mrs. Darling, has been. The girl says that she has gone for an errand, and so so the narrator has been invited to the inside the house, into the living room. So when the narrator got into the living room, it was just like she knows and she doesn't know situation over there. That is, the things surrounded by the narrator was everything the ditto what they had at their home. Actually, it is said that the first time when the narrator sees this lady, she comes with an empty bag and she goes out with the heavy bundles and bundles. That it means that all the belongings that were inside their house were being taken away, carried down by this lady. So whatever in their houses, the silver spoons, knives, and all cutleries were being brought into the Mrs. Darling's house. So when narrator was sitting in the living room of Mrs. Darling, she was able, that is the narrator was able to recognize all the things, because all these things have been already seen by the narrator in her own home. But she says, but the narrator says, even though she knows all the things, but all these things are in the entirely in the different situation, because because the narrator says all the furnitures have been very oddly arranged. It has not been systematically arranged, and it has a muggy smell. So that was an entirely different situation where the narrator is being situated now. So that's how the story goes by. And at last the girl offers a cup of tea to the narrator, and as she sits down in the living room, the narrator is able to see the tablecloth, the same tablecloth that they had in the narrator's home. So the girl says all these are the antique cutleries and all the things they have, and they had plenty of them. But all these belongs to whom? It all belongs to the narrator. So that's what we were seeing about it. At last the narrator just rewinds whatever happened in the past. She thinks, she remembers that once her mother asked her to who just help her. That is, asked the narrator to help her. Her means who? Narrator's mother, to polish the silver. So when she was actually the narrator has been already bored and she has been ill, so she has to stay back at home. So at that time only her mother asked the narrator to help in polishing the silver. So as she was polishing, that is, this is the first time her mother, that is the narrator's mother, is asking narrator to help her. Okay, so the narrator was being asked to polish the knives, forks and spoons. At that time only the narrator herself came to know that these things, that is knives, spoons and forks, everything that they which they were used to use every day was made up of silver. So she was been very astonished to know that. So we stop till that and let's start with the today's class. The girl laughed again. So the girl started to laugh again. So what I said earlier, that is the inner voice of the narrator that is running inside the narrator's mind, isn't it? So the looking at all this, the girl, who is the girl? The girl is Mrs. Darling's daughter, started to laugh at the narrator when she saw the narrator thinking something else. I bet you don't know it is either. I looked intently at her. What we eat with? She asked. Well, do you know? So this is the conversation that takes place between the narrator and the Mrs. Darling's daughter. She hesitated. She walked to the sideboard and wanted to open a drawer. I will look, it's in here. So the Mrs. Darling's daughter asked the narrator what she liked to have. Whatever this girl offers, the narrator is ready to eat. So the girl goes inside and she opens the drawer. I jumped up. I was forgetting the time. I must catch my train. At that time, so while they were having the conversation and while the Mrs. Darling was pulling out was opening the drawer, at that time only the narrator remembered that it was time for her to get on into the train. It was time for her to catch the train. So just suddenly she got up. She jumped up and she got up. She had her hand on the drawer. Don't you want to wait for my mother? So the Darling's daughter was already had her hand on the drawer. So catching the drawer, she asked the narrator, don't you want to meet my mother? Because that is what the narrator said, isn't it? The narrator says that she wants to meet the Mrs. Darling and she is ready to wait. But since it's time for her to catch the train, she wants to go back to the railway station. So that's why Mrs. Darling's daughter asked the narrator, you said you wanted to meet my mother, isn't it? So it is not yet, she has not yet reached home. She has not been back to us. So how come? So how come without meeting her are you ready to go back? Because anyhow it is time for the narrator to catch the train and the narrator has to go back to the railway station. No, I must go. I walked to the door. So the narrator says, no, it's not possible for me. Why? Because still if she goes late, definitely the narrator will miss the train. So the narrator says, no, that's not possible. And she walked, that is the narrator walked towards the door to come out of the house. The girl pulled the drawer open. I can find my own way. So they started, so the narrator came out. As I walked down the passage, I heard the jingling of spoons and forks. By the meanwhile, the girl has just opened the door. Opened the drawer up. So she pulled the drawer and opened the drawer. And meanwhile, the narrator stood up and she just walked out. Actually, they passed through a passage and she went inside the living room, isn't it? So the same way she has to come out from the living room, that is from the living room she has to get down through the passage and go out of the house. So the narrator says that as she was passing through this passage, she was able to hear the jingling sounds of the spoons and the forks. But how? Because the girl has opened the drawer. As she was opening the drawer, actually the drawer should have spoons and forks. So that made a sound that the narrator was able to hear. At the corner of the road, I looked up at the nameplate Marconi Street. So at the corner of the, so as she walked at the corner of the road, she was able to look at the nameplate and it was written Marconi Street. I had been at number 46. So she is in the house number 46. Number 46, whose house it was? It was Mrs. Darling's house. Who said it? It has been said by narrator's mother. And who is Mrs. Darling? Mrs. Darling is the acquaintance of narrator's mother. The address was correct. So the narrator still making it confirm whether she has gone into the correct house. Yes, she is right, because it's number 46. But now I didn't want to remember it anymore. But now, because she has seen everything and she has touched and she felt it, everything, isn't it? So now she says she doesn't want to remember anything more, anything in her life. I wouldn't go back there. And she makes a promise that no more she will be going back to that house. Because the objects that are linked in your memory with the familiar life of former times instantly lose their value. So because all those objects are linked with the past memories of the author, isn't it? And those memories are still no more. Yes. So that thought of no more makes her intensively sad and depressed and grief. So that's why she don't want to go back to those objects anymore. If she goes there, definitely she re-encounters with all the memories of the past that makes her in the darkness of sadness. Lose their world. When served from them, you see them again in strange surroundings. And particularly she says that all those objects are in a very strange, in a particular different situation. It is not in the position that how her mother has orderly, systematically arranged, isn't it? It has been said it is as a ugly furniture and a muggy smell it had. So that make her still worried. And what should I have done with them in a small rented room where the shreds of black out paper still hung along the windows, and no more than a handful of cutlery fitted in the narrow table drawer? So she says, what a small girl can do, isn't it? Already they are in the rented room and everything, all the belongings that were there, that is cutlery, everything, even the tablecloth that was there, isn't it? That also belonged to their house, belonged to the narrator's house, isn't it? And even the cutlery that was inside the drawer also, everything that was there, everything belonged to the narrator's home. So what the girl can do if it is the situation? I resolved to forget the address. So at last she promised to forget the address, isn't it? She cannot anyhow go and get all those things anyhow, and she don't want to have all those memories anymore. So she planned to forget it completely and entirely. Of all the things I had to forget, that would be the easiest. So she says that instead of struggling for anything else or going back with the past memories, it is always good that she forgets entirely, completely, okay, from her mind. Yes, children. So that's all for today's class, and we have completed the whole lesson, the address. Thank you. Bye bye.